Shabbat Shalom to everybody here in Texarkana at the Biblical Lifestyle Center, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone who is watching by the internet today. Thank you for tuning in, and we would ask that you would, if you have a moment, please put your name and whatever location you're tuning in from down there, and any question or comment you may have. We just want to welcome you and bless you on this Sabbath day. This is the first Sabbath of the month of Kislev, the moon cycle of the ninth month of the Torah year, the third month of the biblical year. And so this is a very important season we are entering. With Kislev, we enter into a cycle, a season, an era where we prepare ourselves for something to come. And so a lot of what I will say today, a lot of the briefing that I'm giving from the Kingdom's throne today has to do with the times and the seasons. The times and the seasons always give us the general and give us the focuses, and the parsha of the week always gives us the specifics and the directions as far as what's going on. So to understand, to just do Torah without doing the times and seasons, you're going to miss the greater picture. To just do the times and seasons without doing the cycle of the Torah cycle, you're going to miss the instructions and the specifics and how to do it. So these two things work together in the kingdom of heaven: the Torah cycle, the cycle of times and seasons, festivals, and special seasons of the calendar year. So what is Kislev? What season are we entering? This is the question we must seek to know. I hope most of you understand that Kislev, this month, is the month in which we are building toward something the world has come to know, and the world of Judaism in particular has come to know as Hanukkah. Look, to me, that's just a shiny ornament. That's not the issue of the time and the season. The time and the season is the arising of the anti-Messiah. This is the time of the desolation, the abomination that causes desolation. This is the time prophesied. Every year we have a hint or a symbol of it arising in our lives. We see the things that make up the ultimate anti-Messiah, the ultimate abomination of desolation, the ultimate desecration taking place, and we are seeing that now. We're in the fifth day of the month of Kislev. We have 20 days until the 25th day, when the actual the historic event of the desolation will take place. We have, now is the time of preparation. Now is the time of watching what's happening and getting aware of what's happening and preparing ourselves from what's happening. Sounds ominous. It is somewhat ominous, and yet it's all part of the grand plan of the Creator of the universe. He has this beautiful grand plan, but it's like a chess game without the frivolity or the sense of exhilaration that comes with just a game. This is a very real game, and it's the very real game of what man is on the earth to do. God has a plan to redeem mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline and household by household. It's a serious plan. He also has a plan meanwhile consistent and corresponding to that plan. He plans to return creation, to restore creation, inch by inch, and field by field, area by area, geographical region by geographical region, hill by hill, valley by valley, to the original Edenic state of beauty and fruitfulness, shalom, and harmonious inner working. It's a grand plan. It's a major undertaking. And so we have seasons of time in which we go through things that mature us and prepare us to have the impact upon the world we were designed to have, to participate in this grand plan the way we're designed to participate. So, Parsha Toldot comes in the middle of this grand season when we are watching things seemingly deteriorate around our ears. When we are seeing everything that looked like it was going to be a good thing just dissolve before our eyes. And instead, we see the arising of the proud, of the arrogant. We see the arising of the unjust and the inequitable, of the we would think of them as historically in English, evil. We see evil arising, and that is what is on our table. And the Holy One says, look closely now, because that's not what's really happening. That's just what appears to be happening. What is really happening is my grand plan for the redemption of mankind and for the restoration of creation is developing, but this must take place as part of the chess match, as part of the game that we're going through. You must see this take place and arise up. Arise and let me lead you through this process to victory. So, Toldot. This is the 6th parsha of Torah, and it is the crescendo of the wave of Genesis. Genesis, every book of Torah, but Genesis in particular is what we're talking about now. But every book of Torah is a poetic, literary outline of the history and the future of mankind. The past, present, and future of mankind is outlined in every book of Torah. 5 books of Torah, 5 different perspectives on that outline of history and prophecy, but each one basically communicating the same thing in the same sequence of events. And so with Parsha Bereshit, the first 2 parshas of Genesis, Parsha Bereshit and Parsha Noach, we had the groundwork being laid. That wasn't the real story. That was the groundwork being laid, so we could begin to see how the players are going to be aligned. We had Ham and Shem and Japhet divided. We had the different nations forming and sent out to the various different corners of the world with their different languages. That's how we left the first 2 portions. That was just the beginning. That was how we began. But then we have this series of 7 parshas in a row in the middle of book of Genesis. And these 7 parshas create this wave. They start low in a valley or a trough, and they go up, and they begin to gather momentum like a wave does in the water. And as they reach the top, reach a crescendo, and they begin to fall back down and carry the energy further into the world and bring their energy, the wave energy, as I call it, into the world. This is parshas 3 through 9 of the Torah. And so we started with Lech Lecha. And Lech Lecha was when we met Avraham, and what we have is the beginning of the plan. The beginning of the redemption plan starts with Avraham, and he begins, and some of the details are given to us, just very sketchy details about how he intends to touch the world through this man Avraham and his seed. Hello, seed. And so this is this plan. It begins to lay out. Then it gets more detailed. It's building momentum. We get into Parsha Va'era, the 4th parsha of Torah, the second of this great wave. And Parsha Va'era takes it to a deeper level, takes us deeper into the realm of what the Abrahamic lifestyle looks like and consists of, and what our purpose is. It gives us a purpose. It says that I have known Abraham. I have made myself known to Abraham. We've had this relational thing in order that he may teach his children and his household following to follow the way of the Holy One. This is his mission upon the earth. This is his part in the grand plan. And to teach his children how to walk in the way of the Lord, to do mishpat, tzedakah and mishpat, to do these things. And we're going to, the rest of Torah is about what those look like and what they mean, how Abraham and his progeny are going to do this. So we had that. Then we had last week with Harai Sarah. We saw the transformation. We saw this process of how this goes from generation to generation. This is not limited to Abraham. This is his seed, and how we transfer the covenant torch and baton from one generation to another generation, and it builds in intensity like a wave. Well, today the wave is going to crest. That's the wave of this particular season, and it will reach its high point at zenith with Toldot. And this is the parsha in which we are introduced to the 2 prevailing antithetical worldviews, perspectives, mindsets, philosophies, and approaches to life that will characterize us during this season, and that is the Yacovian, like unto Yaakov, or Jacob, and on the other side, in the other corner, the Esavian, like unto Esau. So we have now, we're going to see this great divergence take place, And we're going to see, I call this Parsha Game On. This is where the preliminary rounds of the game really begin, because all the players are in position. All the nations are where they're going to be. We are beginning to see that take place back earlier, but now we're beginning to see all the players of the covenant lifestyle, of the Shemi descendancy, are beginning to fall into place as well. All the players in their place. So I call this the Parsha of walking out the covenant in a very hostile world. In a world in which we are not in the majority. The Americans need to really grasp what I'm saying here. The time that those who believe in Messiah, those who believe in whatever form of religion they want to call it, who actually wish to follow the Bible, one time we had a sensation that was the majority in this country. It is no longer so. It is not so. As soon as we realize we are a minority, we are a small minority, and we are a dwindling minority. Once we realize we are losing influence here, we are losing political power and structure, then we are finally in a position where we can have an impact upon the world, because political power is the enemy of spiritual power. Political influence, political punch, that everyone wants to have, this sense of ability to control the narrative, the ability to set the tone. When you have that, you don't need to rely upon the goodness and the constant presence and the workings of the Creator of the universe. And he says, no, this is not done by your political power grabs. This is done, this kingdom, this battle is won, this game is won through your connecting with the Holy One. So, Parsha of walking out the covenant in the midst of adversarial, difficult situations. That's where we shine. That's where the kingdom of heaven comes in power. That's where we see real strides move forward. It seems at first like you're losing ground. But what we're really doing, what the Holy One has designed for us to really do, is to gain ground. Now we'll talk about in Parsha Toldot two things that connect with this idea, this concept of us stepping into our role. One of them is birthright, as it's said in English. It's really a bad translation. It's really a horrible concept to think of birthright, because what it is that level of kingdom responsibility to be a leader in your generation, particularly in your family. It is not so much about your right. It is about your obligation, your responsibility, your calling. So the birthright that we're talking about with the bowl of porridge or the bowl of stew or whatever it was, the red stuff, and what was bought, no wonder Esau didn't want it. He had no interest whatsoever in having the responsibility to lead a generation. He had no responsibility to be a model to the society around him, to stay calm, to be able to keep his calm and not go with his emotions and not go with his pseudo-intellect and not be angry at people who disagreed with him. He had no interest in that. He sold it. It was easy. But Jacob Jacob said, no, that is my calling. That's why I'm on earth, is to be able to be a leader in my generation, in my household, but beyond the household, to all nations, to be a shining light, to be an example of how not to be overcome by emotion, anger, offense, negative energy, pseudo-intellectual ideas, ideologies, concepts, philosophies, doctrines, theologies, not to be overcome with that, but instead to walk hand in hand in intimacy with the Creator of the universe, doing His will as He shows it to us in things as one thing at a time. So that's the issue of first birthright. And then the next thing is the blessing. With the assumption of the responsibility of the torch of covenant, with the willingness to take on the role of being a model for the creation, for the world, for the nations, comes the blessing. And it's almost as if you can't separate the birthright from the blessing, or the birth responsibility, or the noblesse oblige, the concept of the covenant responsibility that we undertake to be leaders in our world, to be examples and models of the righteousness of God. that cannot be separated from the blessing. The blessing will follow that. And we'll see how that plays its way out in a very real situation in this parsha. When Yitzhak and the family have to move to Gerar, they have to move into the land of the Philistines. And in that process, they will go, and wherever they go, the blessing goes with the birthright. And that blessing falls upon Yitzhak, and it shows itself in times of famine. He is able to do something he's not good at, which is plant crops. He's a farmer. He's a rancher. He handles flocks and herds. But he goes to Gerar, and he plants, and everything he plants grows. And he is so blessed with regard to the productivity of how he brings productivity to the land. He brings that sense of redemption and restoration of the fruitfulness of the land, that he begins to be the object of scorn, hatred, and the first anti-Semitic attacks, the pogroms, the campaigns of the adversary against the people of the covenant take place in this parsha. That's why it's one of the turning point parshas. It's one of the crescendos. This is what, as Yeshua would put it, in this world, you will have tribulation. And then I love the next phrase, but be of good cheer. And most people don't stop there, but I like to stop there and just take a deep breath for a few minutes and do a Selah. In this world, you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. There is your secret. He's going to say, I have overcome behold, I have overcome the world. But you need to get this first. If you are not of good cheer, you will not see. You will have no ability to comprehend or to be able to handle or steward what it means to overcome the world. If you're sour, if you're angry, if you're offended, if you're hurt, if you're wounded, if you're arrogant toward the rest of the world, blaming them, wanting them to get what they deserve, if you don't have good cheer, then you will not overcome the world. You won't even know if you would. You couldn't recognize it if it bit you. Because you understand the cheer is overcoming the world. Being of good cheer, keeping your joy, staying connected, because joy is not an emotion. Joy is a fruit of the Holy Spirit. Do you know what I'm saying? In other words, if the Holy Spirit is alive and active, you will have joy. No matter what the circumstances, no matter what the context, no matter what the persecutions, no matter what the anti-Semitism, if you are connected to the life flow of the Holy Spirit, you will have joy. You will have other things. You will have the sister fruit. You will have shalom. You will have patience, developing, growing patience. You will have gentleness. You will have kindness. You will have humility. You will have love. You will have self-control, which is in the Hebrew mindset, self-denial, ability to deny yourself and forbear every emotion, every pleasure, every fleshly thing. And you will have goodness. Now, that's a fascinating phrase. Goodness is not that you will be good, necessarily. You probably will. But goodness means you will focus upon the good. It means that your whole emphasis of life is not upon the evil. Fret not because of evildoers. Your whole focus will become on the good, and the potential for good in every situation and every person. Now, these sister fruit represent the presence of the Holy Spirit, not your particular holiness, not your learning, not your ability, not your education. They represent the presence and the flowing activity of the Holy Spirit. Now, do you understand why we don't need political power? Why political power is the antithesis of the movement of the Spirit? Because this is how the Spirit overcomes the world, through joy, through peace, through gentleness, through kindness, through humility. These are the things that Yeshua taught. These are the things that the Torah teaches. This is the way of life. Now, the issue that we're going to face is that we are called to be different. Most of us are trying really hard to fit in. Brethren, sisters, to the extent we fit in, we're out of the game. To the extent people aren't somehow on edge around us, don't sense there's something kind of challenging about us and our joy and our shalom and our gentleness and our meekness and our goodness, our focus on the good, and our self-control and our inability to jump off into every angry fight, every battle that everybody else is all caught up in. To the extent that we hold our peace, we should be looked at as a little bit edgy and a little bit scary, and yet sort of amazing that we somehow are able to do that. So this difference, this call to the difference, is part of this parsha, part of the cresting of this wave, part of what we need to grasp a hold of. How different am I than the world around me? How differently do I react to situations, to reports, to confrontations, to irritations? How differently do I react than the culture around me if there is not a significant and growing difference? Then we're on the sidelines. We're out of the game. We're no longer participating. Game over for the time being until we get back into the process here. So here we are, being different. What does being different look like? Being different will mean we will become fruitful in season. We will bear fruit. It's not that we have all the answers and that we can put good, nice things on Facebook or on social media. It's not that we can argue till the cows come home about whether the Nephilim were space invaders or whether they were giants in the land or mixture of men and animals. It's not that. It's not whether we can pronounce the name a certain way or not way. It is about whether we are bearing fruit. That is the issue of our difference that most is important, the issue of fruit bearing. By their fruit you shall know them. If you are making teshuvah, if you're coming back to the Lord, bear fruit that is consistent with what you are doing. This is the critical factor, and so we'll learn about being fruitful in season. Humility, wisdom. We should be, of all people, most wise. There should be a point at which we are developing the ability to do something besides Google every question and seek the information or the education from institutions of this world, secular institutions, secular government, secular media programs. Instead of seeking our guidance and our wisdom from that, if we're going to be different, if we're going to have covenant kingdom difference, then we must have a pipeline directly to heaven. And that must be the primary source, perhaps the exclusive source of our downloads of revelation information. I'm like you. I from time to time Google, or I've now turned to using DuckDuckGo a little more often, but any kind of search engine you wish to use on so sometimes we use them, but here's the deal. I noticed something this past week. I did a research on something I know about very well, history of the Jewish people. I know pretty good about it. I've had a lot all my life. I've had reasons to study it and be involved. Did you know that one of the primary search engines and its people have scrubbed it? You can't find anything on it other than what they want you to see, which is not what really happened. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is this is the world we live in. This is natural. This is normal. Don't be offended by it. Don't think they have to teach you the things that you should be getting from another source anyway. We should not be getting our information from Google, Yahoo. We should not be getting our information from those sources, so he's taking them away from us. We are having those things taken away. Be different. Wise. Be wise. Have wisdom and revelation flowing. This is the parsha in which if you don't have wisdom and revelation flowing, you're going to get caught up in some kind of drama that's not even your drama. All right, be blessed and a blessing. Be peaceful. Be hopeful. This is what makes us different. We're peaceful. We're shalom. We're full of shalom. We're not ready to argue at the drop of a hat. We're not ready to fight over stuff. Now, if it's critically important in our families at race, we'll do what we need to do, the minimum necessary to do to protect the lives of your family and your friends. But over abstract concepts, never. Over abstract theology, never. Now, this is a challenge. This is the being different, because the rest of the world is all caught up in that stuff. Over ideology, never. Over politics, I'll let you fill in the blank. We are joyful even when hated. We remain thankful and content even when tested. And we face and engage and transcend and overcome every challenge, not through trickery, but through ever increasing, ever maturing emunah, or world consciousness of the presence of God and the goodness of God. All right. Game on? It's on, folks. The players are all in place. The nations are all set forth. The adversary has been given its strength and its power and has its day. The dog has its day. And so now the issue is, which game do we play? Which is the next step? What is the strategy that we'll follow? The antithesis matches for this qualifying tournament. And when I say that, realizing that the last three chapters of Genesis, last three parshas, rather, of Genesis, Miketz, which we read about Hanukkah, about the time of Hanukkah, and Vayigash, and Vayechi, those three parshas are another world altogether. That's the end game. We're not in the end game. We're in the preliminary game. The end game is Miketz, Vayigash, and Vayechi. Every book of Torah has this center point, has the basic level of foundation, first couple of parshas maybe. Then they have the great chiasm, or the wave building, energy building center. And then they have at the end, we have the end game. Every one, I told you, every book of the Torah is an outline of history, human history, and prophecy all in one. In each, you'll find the rising of a Messiah character. In each, you'll find the rising of an anti-Messiah character. In each book of Torah. So in the end game, who is our Messiah character going to be? Yosef. Yosef will be our Messiah character. And the anti-Messiah character will be Potiphar and his wife. And we have usually there's a combo of that process. Then we get to the book of Exodus. Who is the Messiah character? It's Moshe. It's Moses. Who is the anti-Messiah character? It's Pharaoh and his minions. It's all of his armies. And then we get to Leviticus. Who's the Messiah character? It's the high priest. It's Aaron. Who is the anti-Messiah? It's Korach, and it's the leaders of that rebellion that come forth. And then we get to the book of Numbers. Who's the Messiah character coming forth? Who's the Messiah character? It's Pinhas. Pinehas comes forth, and he is the Messiah character. Who are the adversaries? Who are the ones? It's the Midianites and Balak and Balaam, and they are the anti-Messiah characters. And then we get to the book of Deuteronomy. And who's the Messiah character? Yehoshua's arising. Joshua, Yeshua, the prototype for Yeshua is arising in the book of Deuteronomy. And contrary to him, we have offsetting, antithetical to him, are the nations of the world, the goyim of the world. This beautiful process, it's part of the game. It's part of the chess match. It's part of the tournament. Game on. Well, who do we have? Who are the players? Well, in general, we have the goyim of the world and the Avrahamis of the world, those who are sons and daughters of Abraham. In just a general, overall, we have two basic groups. A lot of times I think in some of the English translations of Paul's writing, it's called Jew and Gentile. But it's more than that. It's those who follow the ways, follow the callings of Abraham, versus those who are oblivious to all that and who are just following the natural course of life and the natural affections and attentions. So the goyim of the world and the Abrahamis of the world. And then we have a little more specific. We have the in the parsha that we're going to deal with, in the area that we're dealing with, we have the Hettians, the Hittites, and the Philistinians. I know I blended two things there. The Philistinians, all right. We have these two groups. One from the lineage of Japhet, which is the the Hittites, and one from the lineage of Ham, which is the Philistinians. And we have these different groups which have arisen, and that's not really a fair comparison. I will say that, but the mindsets are very similar. And so we have these players, and we have the Ishmaeli. We now have Ishmael in place, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And offsetting Ishmael is Yitzhak. So we have the Yitzakians and the Ishmaelians, and they have totally different approaches to life, totally different mindsets. The game, the players are out there, the tournament's all set up. We have to pass through each one to get to the finals. We have to pass through all the adversaries that could be laid out for us to get to the finals. This is like a sports tournament, but it's a lot more consequential than that. So the Ishmaelis, who are the Ishmaelis? They just, everything they do is controversial. Everything they do is angry. Everything they do is, their hand is against every man. They're a wild donkey of a man. It's prophesied about them. And the Ishmaelis don't really care about theology. They don't care about, all they care about is causing as much trouble and being as adversarial to you as they possibly can. We have to go through those kind of people. And then there's the Yitzakian, which is saying, no, we're going to stay calm and stay on track and do what we do no matter what happens. And those two are totally antithetical. And those two, the Yitzakian is uniquely designed to withstand, to outlast the Ishmaelis. Well, we have them. We have what we're going to focus on this week is the Esavian and the Yacovian. The Esavian, what is the Esavian? Are you an Esavian primarily, or are you a Yacovian? Because this is all coming out of us now. This is the things that are within us. Are you a Yacovian, or are you a Esavian? What's an Esavian? An Esavian is all up in his or her emotions. Everything that happens creates an emotional response. They become very angry really quickly. They fly off the handle. They react to they're reactionary. They are sentimental. They can be so sentimental and so tender in certain ways, but it's all emotion. It's not reality. It's all just fleeting emotion. That's the Yacovian. And they are really not going to take the lead. The Esavian. They're really not going to take a lead. They're just going to flow with their emotions. And when their emotions die down, they're there. And they're also driven by appetites and urges, lust, greed. They're driven by these things. This is the Esavian part of you, and it's in you, because we're all sons and daughters of Abraham through Yitzhak, so this is in you. The question is, who's winning? Is the Esavian winning, or what's the Yacovian? What's the other side? What's the antithetical part? How can we become more Yacovian? And that's not even the ultimate goal, but that's for the temporary. First, not to be Esavian, driven by your emotions, driven by drama, driven by the current drama that everybody else is talking about, driven by lust and greed and appetite. We want to avoid that because we have a better purpose, a higher reason to be in existence than to fall into those traps. Those are just distractions. So what is the Yacovian? Yacovian, the Jacob aspect of things, is still imperfect, has all sorts of imperfections, has sorts of carrying on, thinking things through. Starts out very pseudo-intellectual, very cerebral, very rational. This is where it's the lowest level of Yacovianism. At least you see something somebody else doesn't see. At least you see there's a higher purpose. At least you see there's something more real. There's something more, maybe moral, maybe more good, maybe more beneficial, maybe more righteous in your men. This is the way this is lowest level Yacovianism. That's not where you're going. That's where you start. That's the lowest level. That's the bad rung. But it's better than Esavian, which is driven by emotion. Better because you have the potential to go further. So eventually the Yacovian begins to rely less and less upon intellect and actually eschew intellectualism in order to pursue the relationship with God, the actual downloads, the revelation flow. And we'll see it really begin with Yaakov next week when he goes into the vision of the staircase, and he begins to relate to the Holy One personally as opposed to intellectually, which he's always done up to this particular stage. The Yacovian, now, ultimately realizing that the Yacovian has a goal, which is to transcend Yacovianism, to go to Israeli, to be an Israel. Yaakov does not end as Yaakov. He ends as Israel. When he reaches his zenith, when he holds on tight in the deepest level of intimacy and struggle with the Holy One, not with men, That's whenever he becomes Yisrael. And that's what we're going toward, Yisrael. Yisrael is to be able to have our primary battle is not with men. Our primary controversy is not with people or ideologies or governments or nationalities or ethnicities. Our primary challenge is to get deeper in relationship with and call forth the beauty, draw the strength off of our Heavenly Father. That is the essence of Israel. Now, just as Yaakov has a alter ego that he ascends to, which is Israel, similarly, Esau has a alter ego that he descends to. He descends into Edom, as it's written, and a lot of times are said by English speakers. Edom is the ultimate downfall, the lowest point you can reach. Edom, and I'm sorry to fall into something so silly and profane, but a few years ago, a comedian came on the stage. It was the days of some bad stuff going on in terrorism in the world. And he would come on and he had this character called Ahmed the Dead Terrorist. If anybody know Ahmed the Dead Terrorist? And I don't mean to insult anybody, but it was so funny whenever Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, no matter what you said to him, what was his phrase? I kill you. I kill you. That's Edom. I kill you. You see it in the streets, folks. You see it on the political broad. I kill you. This is the lowest level at which anyone who has any connection to the Holy One or his covenant could ever fall. I kill you. Whatever you said, I just can't stand to be with you. I can't stand to be around you. I can't stand for you to exist. You should not exist. I kill you. Of course, Ahmed the Dead Terrorist was funny when he said that because we all knew he was about to blow himself up in some way. Trying to kill you. Well, that's the same thing as what happens to the sons of Edom. They always blow themselves up, trying to kill you. They always overplay their hand. You don't have to worry about fighting them too hard because they will always overplay their hand. They will always expose their own weaknesses, and half the time they will blow themselves up. You see it happen all the time. So we have the Edomi and we have the Israeli. And what we have going on at the same time in this tournament of champions as we're playing, as the game on, is we see the approaching shadows of two characters. We see the approaching shadow on the one hand of the anti-Messiah and his minions. But that's not the only shadow we see coming. We see another shadow coming, which is a brilliant light-covered shadow. A shadow clothed in light. And this shadow clothed in light is the shadow of Mashiach, of Messiah coming, with his devoted, humble, faithful followers, his hosts. This is what the ultimate game and the end game is, the qualifying tournament. So at this time of year, as we are at this stage of Kislev and at the stage when we're seeing the fruit of whatever's happening, whichever Esavian or Yaakovian, Edomi or Israeli actions we've been doing, there are certain questions that we start to ask. We should ask. Any son of the covenant should start to ask these questions. Generally, it is, how strong is my foundation and my ecosystem? Because the anti-Messiah and his minions will come first. Am I anti-Messiah and his minions worthy? Seaworthy? Can I handle it? How about my family? How about my children? How about my wife? How about my husband? How about my brothers and sisters? How about my faith community? Are we anti-Messiah ready? And what are we relying upon to get there? What methodology? What assets? What toolkit are we trying to rely upon to get anti-Messiah ready? Antiochus Epiphanes ready. Greco-Syrian army and its persecutors ready. How are we doing to get there? So questions that need to be asked every year by the covenant partners in this month of Kislev. Number one, okay, where do I stand with the Holy One? Right now, in this moment, where do I stand with the Holy One? Who is he to me? How close am I to him? in love with him am I? How devoted to him am I? What is occupying my thoughts more than him? What is occupying and catching me up in emotion more than him? How is my passion level? How is my following level? How is my communication level? Well, I'll go into more details. But here's the question. Where do I stand with the Holy One, with his Torah, with his apprenticeship program, and with his plan for my life and for the world? Where do I stand in that? Because that's your first clue whether you're ready for the anti-Messiah or not. If you're not there, it's going to be really hard when the anti-Messiah shows up. First of all, you may be tempted to join his minions. Or you may be intimidated enough to join his minions. Or you may not, you just give up and die because you don't want to face it. Or, Calgon, take me away. You pray to have him take you away. He says, no, I want you to be ready. So where do you stand with the Holy One, with his Torah, with his whole apprenticeship program? Where are you in the apprenticeship program? Where are we in the training program? And where are we in his plan for our lives? Here are the tests. Am I active and growing in passion for the Holy One? For his will, for his ways? I had the delight of posting a question or a series of hopefully revelatory reminders on Facebook this week, and I was really amazed at the responses that I got. Pleased in many ways by a lot of it, that it awakened something and awakened a response. And part of the response was from very people I know and people I understand are on the side of the king. People who are, and they're saying, I feel like I've lost my passion. I feel like I've lost the joy. I feel like I've lost the sense of participation in something grand and beautiful. Good points. Good comment. Not that that's where I want you to stay, but if you don't realize that you've lost passion, you'll never seek it and you'll never go back for it. If you don't realize, if you don't sense that you've lost your fire, your energy, your momentum in the kingdom, your hunger for the things of the king, for the presence of the king, for walking and working with him, co-laboring with him in what he's doing, if you don't realize that, you won't hunger for it and you won't seek it and you won't find it. You'll just go on in oblivion to the fact that you become Esavian. You have taken on Esavian characteristics. You're moved by every wind of political, ideological, press release intrigue. You're moved by politics, and you're moved by philosophy and theology, and you're moved by the latest YouTube video. You're moved by everything, but you're not moved by God. And you're not responding to him, and your heart's not breaking to be in his presence and receive downloads and revelation directly from him and receive that sense of affirmation. One of the things one of the dear friends said was that I don't feel that sense of affirmation, his joy in me. It's like, good. Not that it's good that you feel that way. Good that you realize you need that. We need that. We need to see him smiling at us. Not because we've done everything right. We haven't. Not because we have earned some level of affirmation. Because he sees the potential he created in us still there and still alive and ready to move forward. This is that sense of that. So that am I active and growing in passion? And that will be defined by this. Am I fully engaged, regularly engaged in prayer? I don't mean public prayer. I don't mean prayer meetings. I mean, am I in a regular state of constant, more or less, as much as possible, communion with the Holy One about everything that happens, about everything? Instead of going to the social media, instead of going to my friends, instead of going in some other realm looking for some answer, I always go to him first. This will tell you whether you have passion or flowing in passion or not. If your first step is not going to him, you lost your passion. You lost your first love. Prayer is the litmus test of passion. Prayer is, I can't wait to ask him about this, to talk to him about this. I can't wait to walk with him and have a conversation with him about this issue in my life or this thing that I'm hearing. I can't wait to have that conversation. And it's like I tell people, look, go for a walk. If you can walk, go for a walk. If you can't walk, go for a drive. If you can't drive, go for a wheelchair ride. Whatever it takes to get you out in some level of creation, or something beautiful that God made, not that man made. Something that the creator of the universe actually made and is put life into. Go to that. That's a waterfall. If it's a cloud bank, I don't care where it is, go to something and then begin to just talk. Just open your mouth and begin to have conversations with him and talk. And then eventually you're going to think you're all alone, and it's a little awkward when you first start if you're not used to doing this. It'll feel very awkward because you're just talking to nothing. And you're going to find out shortly, sooner or later, you're not alone after all. He's there. He's there with you. And not only is he there with you, and this is the key factor, he's smiling at you with great love and affirmation. Not because you're right about everything. Because you're asking him the questions. You're talking to him about this. You're getting the downloads. In that process, prayer and meditation, go on Torah and doing the mitzvot. These are the things. You want to know if your passion's still good, if you're still flowing in God? Prayer, meditation on the Torah, and doing the mitzvot. Actually engaging, not just talking about them, not just studying them, actually doing the things he said to do. If it's merely love your neighbor, that's what a focus in your life. I could be angry at my neighbor. I could be upset because he's a Democrat or a Republican. I could be upset because he's a liberal or a conservative. But my job is not that. My primary job is to do the mitzvot. So I'm just using one general. All the mitzvot, there's so many different things. If we know them, we study them, then do them. All right. Second litmus test, am I experiencing and am I exuding and walking in love and joy? How's my joy? David said, restore unto me the joy of my, and we read it in English as salvation. Look at the Hebrew. Restore unto me, this is David speaking here in the Psalms. Restore, Psalm 51. Restore unto me the joy of my Yeshua. I know Yeshua's name means salvation. So we translate that because we'd rather have it be an objective, abstract concept that we want to have joy out of rather than a person, which is what David wanted. David wanted to have joy arising, restored joy in the joy of the persona of the Messiah, of the persona of the one who was to come, of the persona of the one that he embodied and the one that he was really a forerunner for. He wanted to have joy in the knowledge that he was real, he's existent, and he's with you. Oh, restore unto me the joy. And so one of the things that I would cry, if we're going to be ready for anti-Messiah, oh Lord, restore unto us the joy of our Yeshua. It makes me want to break down and cry. I'm going to try not to be a Savian on you. Somehow we could forsake the joy of our Yeshua for political argument, for family disputes, for family disagreements, for abstract ideological or philosophical or theological concepts, abstract statements, that somehow we could surrender the joy of our Yeshua. I say, I'm trying not to be Esavian, but I am trying to bring this point out to you. Please don't let anything take your joy. The joy of your Yeshua. The joy of the Master. The joy of the Messiah. The joy of the Deliverer. The joy of the light of the world. The joy of the bread of life. The joy of He who is the epitome of what we are here on earth to do, to promote, to follow. The joy, the first love. All right. Am I seeing another litmus test of where we stand? Am I seeing the weekly Torah portion repeating itself in my life? Am I looking for it? To see it repeating itself, you have to look for it. The events of the portion, the events of the week. This is the specific. Are we looking at the Torah portion not as some knowledge base we're going to learn, some information we're going to get, or maybe a little bit of inspiration we're going to get? We're actually looking for our own lives. our own experiences and interpreting all of the experiences of that week through the lens of the events that are described in the Torah portion. How is that coming? When you're with the Holy One, when you're stand with the Holy One, walk with the Holy One, that's what happens. You begin to see yourself in the Torah, and you see the Torah parsha in you. You see the divergence of this week. You see that you've got an Esau side. You've got a tendency, a temptation to go off into the Esavian, into emotion, raw emotion. Fly off the handle. Get all depressed. Get all sad. Get all excited. Get all thrilled for a few minutes. Manic depressive almost. Bipolar in some realm. You have this tendency in you. But you also have the capacity in you to go Yacovian and keep transcending the pseudo-intellect all the way into the Israeli. I hope you're seeing this. And every event that you experience, every challenge that you face, is a lens through which to look at yourself. And how am I doing with the Yacovian side and the Israeli goal versus the Esavian and the Edomi disaster that is waiting at the end? So, next question as to where you stand with the Holy One, as to whether you're ready, whether you are ready for the anti-Messiah's shadow to start arriving on you. Are my Sabbaths refreshing, inspiring, and energizing me? Are the Sabbaths refreshing, inspiring, and energizing me? Am I receiving this download, this gift of the Holy One in such a way that I am becoming stronger and stronger because of my interaction with His Sabbath? This is where Sabbath is no longer a rule or something you obey. Sabbath becomes a lifeline to the energy pulses of God. This is what Sabbath is. We don't celebrate Sabbath just because we say we did it and we can mark off a thing we did. We do Sabbath because it is our lifeline. We connect to the respirator of heaven, and we breathe in His air. And this is how are my Sabbaths? Are my Sabbaths refreshing, inspiring, and energizing me? Next question to determine how you are with the Holy One, whether you're ready for the anti-Messiah shadow to come on you in Kislev. That is this: am I fearful? Am I fearful, afraid concerning anyone or any group or anything? Am I afraid? What is my fear level? If you had a gauge of 1 to 10 about how fearful I am about life and about COVID or about this or about that or about this person winning the election, that person winning the election, this person, this economic thing, whatever it is that you could possibly be worried about or upset, how is your fear level? And is it going down or is it going up? Is it increasing? You see, this tells you how you are doing with the Holy One. Because the Holy One comes and instills everything opposite of fear. He gives you a sense of well-being and consolation and comfort and confidence. And if you don't have that, it's your sign. It's your warning, flashing light. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. I'm worried about this. I'm anxious about that. That is telling you have disconnected from your life force. You've disconnected from Yeshua, from His power, and from His Torah. Next question: am I angry? And usually you don't know. Maybe if after a period of time you realize you're angry. But everybody around you does. Everybody knows that, well, not in a good mood today. Hadn't been in a good mood for the last 2 years. May not be in a good mood ever. Basic character is they're angry. They're angry at the Democrats, or they're angry at the Republicans, or they're angry at the Catholics, or they're angry at the Protestants, or they're angry at the Muslims, or they're angry at the Confucius people. They're angry at the atheists. They're angry at the abortionists. They're angry at the... Are you angry? Or do you realize this is a game and we have strategic chess moves we make, and anger will take us to the wrong moves? Anger will cause us to make the wrong moves. It's like the old saying in the bar fights: make sure if you fight them that they're angry, because they'll do stupid stuff. A little bit of alcohol and a lot of anger, and they do stupid stuff, and you can beat the tar out of somebody bigger than you because they're angry and they're drunk. Now, this is the idea of don't be angry when you engage the world. There are adversaries. There are challenges. But anger is not your friend. It's not going to help you. Anger is going to cause you to do something foolish. So are you angry? Are you angry at your spouse? Are you angry at your former spouse? Are you angry at your children or one of your children? Are you angry at your parents? Are you angry at the government? Are you angry at the local institutions? Are you angry at the COVID situation? Are you angry at the political situation? What are you angry? Is your life characterized by poison by this thing called anger? Because to the extent it is, you have a problem with the Holy One. You have disconnected yourself from the shalom, the life force of the Holy One. All right, I know. Do I think myself better than anybody else or other people? Anybody? Do I think I'm better than those abortionists? Do I think I'm better than those LGBTQ, whatever they are? Do I think I'm better, more moral? Do I think I'm morally superior? Do I think I'm better than those Democrats? Do I think I'm smarter than those liberals? What are those Republicans or those conservatives? I don't care. Do I think I'm more intelligent, better than they are? Do I think I'm more moral than they are? Do I think I'm more intelligent than they are? If you think any of that even gets into your head for a short period of time, you have disconnected from the mind of the Messiah. Because you ain't. And you never will be. And you aren't supposed to be. What you're supposed to be is following the will of God. Doing the will of God in every situation. Next thing is, am I a kingdom role model where I am right now? Am I primarily a blesser or a curser? Are my words encouraging and affirming and moving toward the potential and drawing the best out of people? Or are they sarcastic, cynical? Are they profane? Do I like profanity? Do I like it? Is it something I enjoy? Do I like sarcasm? That tells me I'm disconnected from the life force of the Holy One. Because He likes to speak to you in ways that bring out the best in you and inspire you in this process. Am I a net giver to this world and to the people of this world, or am I a net taker? Am I out for what I can get or what I can give? Am I building shalom, exuding shalom, and making shalom happen wherever I go? Or am I carrying the drama of the day one step further in every conversation? Am I a drama promoter? Or am I a shalom asar, builder, maker? Those are the questions of number one. That was all in where do I stand with the Holy One? And with His Torah, and with His apprenticeship program, and with His plan for my life. Second question that we should be asking ourselves, every son, daughter of the covenant, at this time of year in the month of Kislev, is this. What is the readiness for Antiochus status of my heart? How about of my household? How about of this and the next generation of my bloodline? How about of my faith community? How about of the people of the Holy One worldwide in general? What is the readiness for Antiochus Epiphanes? What is the readiness for the anti-Messiah? What is our state of readiness for this? And on the other hand, what is our state of readiness in all those different categories for the appearance of Yeshua, the appearance of the Messiah, for the coming of the Holy One, for the clouds of glory, for the revelation of the Son of the heavens? Here are the tests. At what level are we emotionally attached to or economically dependent upon or intellectually soul-tied to the secular government presently in place? At what level are we emotionally attached to or economically dependent upon or intellectually soul-tied to the government presently in place, the nation state presently we are involved in? If we are not Antiochus Epiphanes ready. if we are significantly attached, emotionally, economically dependent, if we are psychologically drawn and emotionally soul-tied to a local nation state without just being patriotic and doing the duty of a citizen, if we are really connected with this abstract theology, ideology of it, then we are not ready for either the anti-Messiah or the Messiah to come in his power. Next question. On whom and what people and outlets and institutions do we rely upon for news or information in general or education or opinions about current events or trends or about vocabulary or narrative framing, to frame the narrative, to tell the story, for entertainment? What are we relying upon for entertainment? What are we relying upon for motivation? This will tell you whether you're ready for the Messiah. If you're tied into the world systems of entertainment, education, news, information, if you're tied to these things and feel you're dependent upon these things, you are not ready for the anti-Messiah to come. You're not ready for the Messiah to come in any fullness of power because you are connected too deeply, too attached. Next question. From what streams, if any, are we receiving revelation, inspiration, wisdom, and counsel? From what streams, if any, are we receiving revelation, inspiration, wisdom, and counsel? Now, you'll recognize some of the phrases out of the apostolic prayers that Paul prayed for you. We're supposed to be getting this stuff, guys. Wisdom and revelation, inspiration, counsel, knowledge. Well, all these things are supposed to be coming to us. This is supposed to be part of our heritage, part of who we are as sons and daughters of God. But what are we doing? We're just repeating and regurgitating phrases of religion that we've heard. I'm not saying that's all we're doing. That's the question. That's the question. Are we just repeating phrases? There was a child's movie, family movie that I watched years ago. Anybody see Paulie? Paulie is a story about a parrot and a child who loved this little bird, this little parrot, and whatever. And the parrot had to help the little child who had stuttering problems. So the parrot was basically living through trying to get the child where the child could speak. The child had to start talking and read flashcards and stuff like that. And the parrot at one point in this story got kind of anxious or in a hurry, and he would talk to the child, tell the child what to say. Cup, cup, child, cup. And so what happened? The story of the line was the parrot learned to talk, unlike any other parrot that ever existed. He learned to think, learned to recognize things and speak them according to. He began to talk. And then there's another point at which the parrot gets caught up in, goes to South L.A. and meets up with a beautiful Lupe, who is a female parrot, and he doesn't know that other parrots don't talk. So he's talking to you, Lupe, and Lupe's going, and he'll say something and she'll repeat it. And finally he looks at her and says, "Are you talking or are you just repeating?" And that line has stuck with me ever since. Bill, are you talking or are you just repeating? Are you just regurgitating stuff you've heard somebody else say? The latest thing you watched on YouTube, the latest thing you read in the commentary, the latest thing some preacher told you, are you just repeating that? Are you talking? Do you have a source? Do you have a revelation flow? Do you have wisdom coming into you? Are you talking? Or are you just repeating? Because I don't need anybody to repeat anything more to me. I need somebody with a revelation flow, a revelation download. I need somebody with wisdom from heaven speaking into my life. I do not need you to regurgitate another doctrine at me and tell me what my doctrine is wrong. I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't fix anything. Wisdom and revelation. Are you talking or are you just repeating? This is the next question. What streams are you getting? Finally, are the widow and the fatherless and the foreigner and the Levite and the captive and the prisoner, are they in your world, and do you recognize them, and are you doing something to facilitate their advancement, their improvement, their health? Are you doing something for the widow, the foreigner, the fatherless, the Levite, and the captive and the prisoner? All right. I'm realizing I'm trying to talk about Toldot by telling you all around it about what the real issues of Toldot are, because we're in this process of getting ready for the backside of the wave. As the energy begins to flow, we're going to see what's in us, and we're going to see that the generations of Yaakov turn into Joseph and his brothers. There is the hope of potential good, but there's also everything else, and the Esavian is going to take its place. Next, third question, though, we need to ask ourselves this time of year is, what is the Father doing? Every time you hear something happening on the news, what do they call that? I don't call it the news anymore. On the propaganda machine. Everything you hear something coming out on the propaganda devices, what do you do with it? Is it about what the bad guys are doing or the good guys are doing? Do you think, or is it about what the Father's doing? It's always about what the Father's doing. And we are called to move by what we see the Father doing. So, quick question always to ask ourselves this time of year is, what is the Father doing? And what is He saying? And I have these little things to ask you. It's sort of guidelines to help you learn what the Father's doing. Keep you focused on what the Father's doing. Number one, follow the water. You know, in the whole days of Watergate and everything, the deep throat and the conversations in the parking garage, the comment was always follow the money. But in the reality of the physical, geographical world that we live in, the issue became, and always in the days of Yitzhak and Gerar, follow the water, because water is life. Where is the rain falling, and where is there drought? You know, there has never been and will never be a worldwide drought. There's a reason for that. Water is going to accumulate, and water is going to fall somewhere. Water will be somewhere. Water will build up in pressure under the earth, and it will come out somewhere, whether it be through the drilling of wells or the digging of wells, or whether it be through geysers. The water is prevalent at all times. The question is, where is the water? We are so created so that, and the covenant is rich so that as we follow the covenant, the water follows us. I will give you rain on your land in its season. If, as, when, and to the extent you shema my instructions for living, and love me with all your heart and all your soul, and serve as I tell you to serve, then I will send rain upon your land in its season, both the autumn and the spring rains. Follow the water. Go where the water is. Go where there's water, where there's rain. Understand that if there's not rain, there is a reason. If there's not water, there is a reason. And what do you do with the water when you find it? We have this graduating sequence of things that we take place in the book of Exodus and Numbers. First of all, you got to break that thing open. You strike it with a rock, Rephidim. And then, but as you mature in your walk, in your relationship, you don't have to use any level of force. You don't have to do anything showy. Just speak. Just speak to the rock. Your own words now become more powerful than Moshe's rod. Your own words become more powerful than Moshe's rod. You speak to the water and you bring the water forth. Your words begin to be the source of the water. And that's your revelation stream that you're flowing. Thirdly, you get deeper in revelation. And you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is sing. Spring up, oh well. Just hum a sense of the rhythm. And you're singing heaven's songs, and the water flows to heaven's songs. Now, what's the water? Water is the sweetness of the instructions of Torah, the wisdom of God flowing down into mankind. That's the essence of what the water represents here. So follow the water. I'm going to say some more things quickly. Follow the innovation. Follow where new things are coming from. They may be bad things. They may be dangerous things. But follow innovation, because where people stagnate, that tells you that we're not moving forward, and you're going to see. Go to the place where the innovation is. Follow the money. God is always redistributing wealth. Did you know that? God is always redistributing wealth. It's what he does. He doesn't do it the way men do it, and men don't ever do it right. Men will never do it right. God knows where to, because he redistributes money. That's what he did with, it's what he's been doing when the 5 kings had to fight the 4 kings, and it was all over the wealth of Sodom. And then they took it, and then they brought it back. Abraham brought it back, and then the wealth became such a downdraft on the souls of men that he sent fire and brimstone on Sodom, and the wealth of the entire, and it had to be distributed throughout the rest of the world. He's always redistributing wealth. That's what God does, but he does it his way. And what he says is to the people of covenant, I give to you. He gives to us the power to generate wealth. Not to mean we get rich, not to mean we have shiny Mercedeses and great big houses. It means that we have what is needed to fulfill the plan, the purposes of God. That's an amazing thing. Follow the money. Follow the migrants. Follow the migrations. We can all be upset, and I from a country standpoint, from a political standpoint, I'd rather people stay where they are because I know where they are. But God's economy is watch the migrants. They're going somewhere for a reason, and they're leaving somewhere for a reason. You need to understand the reason they're leaving, and you need to understand the reason of where they're going. And that's your key to what the Father's doing, and what the Father's saying is watch the migrants, watch the money, watch the water, watch the innovation. Follow the food. Follow the food. Follow the food supplies. You start seeing your food supplies rental. Where's the food? He sent. Why did Joseph wind up in Egypt? He's following the food. Why did the brothers go to Egypt? They were following the food. All right, you get the picture. Why did Yitzhak go to Gerar in this parsha? He was following the food. They didn't have a lot of it, but they had some. And then he brought a lot. Isn't that pretty cool? All right, follow the health. Follow the place where there's relative health. Don't follow the place. Where there's health, God is pouring out something. Where there's a lot of sickness rampant, there's a reason for that. I'm not talking about the individual person was sinful. Where the whole society is sick, where it seems like there's great outbreaks, something's wrong. There's a problem there. Follow the warriors, the wars. Follow the battle, the warriors. And but more particularly, follow the places where the warriors aren't going. The warriors go to the flashpoints. They go to the front lines. So, do you understand what God's saying? He says, this is the flashpoint of life. This is the flashpoint you need to watch out for. Understand that if you're not called to be a warrior in this battle, don't rush to that flashpoint. This past summer, we saw a flashpoint arising that was none of our business. I mean, you saw it arise big time, and it was none of our business. Don't run to it. Don't understand where the warriors are going. Watch the warriors. And follow the people of the covenant, because you see, ultimately, that's the only hope you got. Always follow the people of the covenant. Don't isolate. I mean, for a period of time, for a short period, this, that, to heal, do whatever. But don't ultimately, and I'm not talking about some local fellowship. I'm talking about, in general, the people of the covenant who are following the ways of the Torah and the ways of God. All right. I know we're going to run short of time, but I wanted to get that out. This is the times and the seasons part of what we're doing. And it will just generally relate that to the parsha. Where do we leave off? We left off with the sons of Ishmael. They are in place. The sons of Ishmael, they're in place. Funny, fascinating language. By their towns and their strongholds, their fortresses. The sons of Ishmael are now fortified in the land. The ones who want to fight you about everything. The ones who just, whatever you say, they disagree with. Whatever you do, they don't approve of. It's all about I kill you. I want you. This is those guys. They're everywhere. They got strongholds. They're entrenched. 12 exalted ones. That's Nasis. 12 exalted ones according to their people groupings, their ethnicities and their groupings and their labels. And then these were the years of the life of Ishmael, 100 years and 30 years and 7 years. And then he exhaled and he died and he was gathered to his people. And then it says, they dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt as you go toward Assyria. I don't want to scare you, but that was important that he told us that. That the descendants, the entrenched, fortified sons of Ishmael and their people groups, their little warlike people groups, are spread out from Havilah all the way to Shur. Now, if you want to know where Havilah was, it was at the far end of the known world. And Shur was on the other far end of the known world. Egypt by the waters. And the Caucasian Sea, the Sea of the Caspian Sea, and up to all the way to India was where we attribute this land of Havilah. Wow. Now, if you understand, everything we read about in Toldot is with the background of all through your world. Every place you go, the Ishmaelis are entrenched. The Ishmaelis are against you. The Israelis want to fight with you about everything. They are not your friends, but yet they are your antithesis. And without them, you could not do what you're called to do, because you need the resistance of the Ishmaelis. And God has set it up so you will have that resistance everywhere you go. It will not be, I didn't call you to a rose garden, but I did promise to be the rose of Sharon to your lily among thorns. I'm going to repeat that phrase to you. He never promised you a rose garden, but he did promise to play the rose of Sharon to your lily among thorns. And I'm equating the thorns here to the Ishmaelis and their entrenched societies and their secular mindsets and their antithetical approach to life. And we haven't got to the Yasavians yet, because the Yasavians half the time is us. We can be just as Yasavian as anybody in the world, because we get all caught up in our emotions. We get caught up in our drama. We get caught up in our offenses. We get caught up in our fears, our doubts. We get caught up in our sentimentality. These things begin to draw us and drain us, and we lose contact with the Holy One. And then we got real trouble with the Ishmaeli fortresses. We can't handle Ishmaeli fortresses when we're in that mode. Or we team up with them, or we gang up with them, and we agree to them, to what they're doing. Well, that's where we ended last week. This week, let's read, and it'll be time to go just about, but let's read chapter 25. Stand with me if you would. Now that he's told us where the Ishmaelis are and what we have to look forward to, the game is on. Here's what he says. Chapter 25, verse 19. And this is the Toldot, Ele Toldot. This is the genealogy, this is the story of Yitzhak, son of Avram. Avram begot Yitzhak. And Yitzhak was 40 years old when he took Rivkah as wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Syrian. And Yitzhak pleaded with the Holy One for his wife because she was barren. And the Holy One granted his plea. And Rivkah, his wife, conceived. But the children wrestled, struggled together within her. There was mortal combat within her. And she said, if all is well, why me? Why am I like this? It says in your English Bibles. So she went to inquire of the Holy One. And the Holy One said to her, Shnei Goim, 2 nations are in your womb. Shnei Umim, 2 people groups, 2 ethnicities will be separated from your body. And one of these will be stronger than the other. And then in English it says the older will serve the younger. In Hebrew, Hebrew mindset, the greater will serve the lesser. And so when her days were fulfilled for her to give birth, indeed there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over. And so they called his name Esav. And afterward his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esav's heel, and his name was called Yaakov. And Yitzhak was 60 years old when she bore them. And so the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. But Yaakov was a mild man dwelling in tents. And Yitzhak loved Esau because he ate of his game. Actually, in Hebrew, his game was in his mouth. He played mouth games. But Rivkah loved Yaakov. Now Yaakov cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Yaakov, "Please, now feed me. Pour it down my throat. Feed me some of this red stuff, for I'm weary." Therefore his name was called Edom, which means red. And Yaakov said, "Sell me your Bechorah, your birthright, or your birth responsibility as of this day." And Esau said, I'm about to die. What is the birthright to me? And Yaakov said, "Swear it to me as of this day." And so he swore it to him. And he sold his Bechorah to Yaakov. And Yaakov gave Esau bread and stew of lentils. And he ate and he drank and he arose. And when he went his way, he counted his birthright as nothing, as small, of insignificance. Thank you. You may be seated. So we have the Esavian and the Yacovian personas coming forth. The sages of Israel say, again, it's part of this midrash, that is just a parable, that in the womb of Rivkah, the reason she had such trouble and so painful is because all the prototypical struggles of Esau and the Esavians and the Yacovians that will ever take place in the world, that will continue till the end of days as we know them, took place, were replaying themselves inside her womb. And these two were fighting them out in her womb. Now, again, I'm not trying to tell you this for the historical factuality of this. It's a parable. We are from the same womb. We both have this within us. We're cells of the same womb, and here we are and we are antithetical to each other, to ourselves. We have this self-conflict within us at all times. And this, will we follow the Esavian way? Will we be driven by our exhaustion? Will we be driven by this birthright transaction? Will that red stuff just look so good to us? Or that adultery looks so good to us? Or that addiction looks so appealing to us, the thing that we get addicted to? Will the entertainment world, will the movement, will the sentimentality of a day or a holiday become so moving to us that it will drive us and be our moving force and let us forget what we're here for and who we are and our covenant responsibility to be lights in the world, to be salt on the earth? Will we forget that in the context of sentimentality and appetite and urge and desire? Will we so value the eternal, the immortal, the covenantal, the divine, that at any price we would buy that as opposed? Are we willing to take the responsibility of being a light and a model and a role model in this world? Are we willing to bear and carry the torch of the covenant in our generation and then pass it on to the generation to come? And make sure we don't leave this world without passing it on in some real way to the next generation? Are we ready to take the Yacovian plunge? The methodologies, admittedly, iffy. Yaakov's just a boy. He's a child. He's still pseudo-intellectual. He's still thinking in those terms. He's going to overcome that. He's going to gradually meet the Holy One face to face, look up in the heavens and say, you are awesome in this place. I didn't know you were here. I didn't know this was the house of God. I didn't know this world is the house of God, much less this particular location. I didn't realize that there's this stairway, this staircase that leads into your presence, and then allows me to come back down, allows messengers of heaven to come back. I didn't realize we were connected to one another. I was just thinking in my head things that I thought were right, things that I thought needed to happen. I was just using my pseudo-intellect to do all this stuff. Now I realize I've got a whole other thing to deal with. I got to deal with the spiritual realm. Are we there? Are we ready to take that, go off on that quest, on that Yacovian to Israeli quest? Are we at the point where we're ready to do that? That's our question. Or are we Isavian? Are we famished? Or do we discount the value of carrying the torch? Do we think it's worthless? It's more important that I get fed well, that I get my pleasure, I get to avoid pain, I get to do what I like, I got to enjoy this kind of entertainment or that kind of entertainment or this kind of thrill or that kind of thrill, or I get caught up in this kind of drama and make my point, state my opinion, take it or leave it. That's the way it is. Is that what I'm in this world for? Or am I here to carry on the torch of covenant, to pick it up and be a shining light, light the world with it, and do it in a way which brings honor to the King as opposed to brings honor to me? Which way am I going? Which way you going, Billy? Are we going? We're in a world of Ishmaelis. We're going to have to learn how to deal with that. In this world, you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. Esavians never stay in good cheer. If we get all Esavian, there's always something greener on the other side of the fence. There's always something I could have more money, more better job, more pay, prettier woman, handsomer man, bigger car, bigger house. There's always something more glitzy and glamoury out there. That's why Esavians are never really happy. They're never content. Paul said, I've learned this. I've learned to be content in whatever situation. How do you do that? Well, you have to not be Esavian. You have to learn the things of God, that they're more valuable. That's to be Yacovian at least, and hoping to move toward the Israeli in this process. All right, so we have this question. Which way are you going, Billy? Which way are you going, whatever your name is? Which way are you going? Which way is your family going? Which way are your children going to go? What are you going to do to try to make sure they go the Yacovian to Israeli methodology? Because we've all got to have Ishmael to deal with. And he's not friendly. And he's not going to roll over and play dead. He's not going to say, oh, wow, you guys are spiritual. So, wow. He's going to come after you. He's going to be opposing you. He's going to stand against you. And he's going to be like the resistance that makes you better. And that's the whole idea. But you've got to have a sense of a goal. Paul said this. And I love to quote him because he's the most Torah person I know. He said, I do not consider myself to have attained or to have apprehended. But I press on. I press on to he who has apprehended me, and I press on to the mark of the high calling. Now, that's the key. No matter what we face, no matter what challenges we have to deal with, no matter what enemies or adversaries, we can all get up in our moral uprightness stage. You shouldn't do that. They're going to do it anyway. Do you know what I'm talking about? You telling them they should not do it does not make a hill of beans worth of difference other than make you look stupid. Sorry, I'm trying to be real with you. You're the one that looks bad by doing that. That's immoral. That's wrong. They know that. They don't care. Now the issue is, how are you going to inspire them, model for them, lead them in a way in which they see something better? The grass always greener on the other side of the fence. You be the green grass. As opposed to consigning them to the desert, sending them out to the waste places. I mean, this is the challenge of real life and the challenge of Parshat Toldot. As we go into the next wave, are you going to be a Joseph? Are you going to be like Joseph? Or are you going to be like Judah, who wants, what's in it for me? What's the money? Where's the cut? Where's the cut? What do we get out of this? Or are you going to be like Reuben? Well, you talk a good game, but you never show up on time. You never do what's right. You never get it done. You always just talking a good game. Or then when time comes, it's like, I'm going to take my dad's role. I'm going to take his concubine. I'm going to take over. Well, you never did anything. You never accomplished anything for the kingdom in the process. Well, you going to be a Reuben? You going to be a Yehuda? Are you going to be a Shimon and a Levi? Are you going to be, well, we destroyed those bad guys. Oh, Shechem and what he did to our daughter, our sister Dina, wasn't right. So we showed him, we beat him. Is that what you're going to be? He said, no, that's Esavian. You're just patting yourself after the Esavian world here. That's not. You made us a stench. You made our name a stench in the land. You say, but I was right. Being right and being light are two different things. Well, this is our challenge that we face. I hope you're catching some of the energy of the Torah, catching the energy of this wave. We're at the crest right now. You have the energy to move forward in the Yacovian way. You have the energy to go forward and be like the Joseph in this territory, in this world, in this time that we live. You have the energy to prepare to deal with and negotiate around and navigate through the trap set for you by Antiochus Epiphanes and the anti-Messiah and the movement of this latter day. Ask yourself the three questions. Are you ready? What's the Father doing? How's my prayer life? How's my revelation stream? Am I angry? Am I worried? Am I fearful? Ask yourself the questions we ask, because this is real. And only way you can be prepared is if you grab a hold of the covenant torch and hold on to it tight and walk it out according to its ways. Well, it's time to quit for me today, for regard to this part of the lesson. I hope you've been blessed. I hope you've been challenged. I hope you've been inspired. I look forward to hearing your comments and seeing wherever it is you've listened into or from, and what's going on with you there. I pray a blessing over your household, over your bloodline, over your country, over your nation as a state, over the people of the covenant wherever you are. May you find rain. May you find guidance and direction. And may you grab a hold of him of Messiah's garment. Follow him all the way. Amen. We'll see you next time. Shabbat shalom.